pirates. Liu Shu, stop. Please. I really need to figure out how to do that accent. It's certainly exotic, Moira says as she keeps the excited little girl contained. The tiny child on a leash who's scrambling, hopping, and climbing everywhere she can is a hassle. The fact that the little girl needs a specialized bit of axiom bands around her main body to stop her from being a walking biohazard was different. But with them on, she was merely a moderately dry-skinned little girl. She didn't like it at first, but quickly grew distracted with everything and was off. The little girl is pulling at the leash tied to her lower body and giving her mother a bit of a workout. Well, giving one of her mother's 8 bodies a workout. Not much more than that. There's a sudden jerk as Lu Shu suddenly tries to jump, and Moira pulls back as she's in the air to catch the wriggly little troublemaker. There are dozens of syllables squeaked out by the adorable little war crime, and she's getting very close to calling out actual words. But that's not going to happen until she breaks the habit of only 1 syllable per head. Otherwise, she's just going to confuse herself and others. Of course, every lidress tries that. It's as normal as dressing up all your bodies in matching or coordinating outfits. It's just normal. But just because everyone tries something doesn't mean it actually works. What a lot of single-bodied races miss about the lidress is just how natural it is. They all think it would be gangly, awkward, and getting in their own way. But it's quite the opposite. A lidress nervous system and instincts are perfectly attuned to handle it in such a way that when you want to talk, one of your bodies is talking. Sometimes you even surprise yourself with which one. The action is just that smooth and effortless. No matter how much you try speaking with 1 syllable per mouth, and you will screw it up at least twice before you're done your first paragraph. It takes a silly amount of practice, training, and discipline to actually speak like that, and even if you're practiced, it's still awkward, halting, and stilted. Then a slamming sound breaks her out of her thoughts. It echoes out strangely, and it repeats itself often, and is quickly accompanied by excited shouts. 8 sets of ears means easy triangulation, and in a few short minutes, Moira is holding on to Lu Shu as they watch a gaggle of teenagers play a game that involves bouncing an orange ball a great deal before trying to get it through a hoop at either end of the court. What really draws her attention, though, is that everyone is armed. Everyone openly has a thigh holster with a pistol of some kind there. But that's just strange. Why are there so many weapons? She keeps quiet and just watches, unsure if bringing attention to herself will have her facing a wall of plasma or a burning river of laser fire. You can relax, a voice says behind her, and 3 bodies turn automatically and sees. You were there when I was... My name is Jake Morgan. He introduces himself as he walks up to the fence to stand next to her, and there's a cheer from the group, and he holds up a hand in greeting, and everyone goes back to the game. He's clearly popular. Nothing like seeing a job well done, is there? A job well done? Maury asked. I've been a city kid my whole life. Born in New York, I figured I'd die in New York too. But the stars came a-calling, and I went. This place, Mainport City, I saw what the hell had happened to it. I recognized the effects of urban decay and unending gang violence. Looks like gangs are still around. Not as they used to be. Everyone has their own ideas on how to protect an area, how to keep people safe. Mine is nice and easy. Make them unsafe. And how does that make sense? Moira asks as she gets a better grip on Lu Shu. What absolutely insane idiot would dare to try and threaten these people? Look at them. They're strong. They're fast. They're dangerous. Jake says, gesturing to the crowd, and there's some whoops of appreciation. Any stupid thief or thug in this city is going to find themselves dodging laser fire and plasma shots in seconds. An armed society is a polite society until there's a mass forgetting of manners and stupid, cowardly people who would strip away the protections of others to feel safe themselves die. I hope so. Shitheads insisting that the police, who were overstretched, underfunded, and mistreated, were the answer to all our problems was nothing short of insane. People need grit in their guts and steel in their spines. Those who don't, well, they don't have any place here. To be frank, I wonder if such a thing has a place anywhere. I've heard stories coming out of Centris. Oh? Think a few little secret societies are going to screw someone over? I'm thinking more like the bottom 10 levels of a spire, where the sunlight, law, and decency never reach, where the desperate and insane boil up from as they need what no one will give, where even in the higher levels we have crime on enough of a scale for gang wars to break out. No, I can't imagine anyone being so mealy-mouthed and weak and surviving without making the world worse for those around them. I thought I was the one with psychological scars here. Why are you venting at me? Because sharing a burden can lighten it, I'm leading by example, Jake says with a grin. Think of it this way, even if I can't actually help you with what you need, at least talking about it will feel good. Are you supposed to be a soldier or psychologist? Better. I'm Baron Morgan, and Mainport City is the jewel of my domain. You as a woman with an apartment here are one of my people. So I'm here to help, Jake says as he turns around and leans against the fence to have his back to the crowd and regarding her with ease. Liu's shoe starts wriggling again, and he reaches over to muss up one of the tiny Lidris's head of hair. The little girl grabs on, and Moira begins to slowly move to extract his hand from her. Just because the protections are on Liu's shoe doesn't mean she's safe to... It's fine, Jake says as he taps something under his shirt. He then fishes out a protective amulet. Even if she wiggles out of her own protections, I have my own. Is that why you're here? Partially. That little girl is dangerous no matter her intent. I doubt she's malicious, but you don't need to mean harm to cause harm, Jake says. She's at the age where hugging someone is just something you do, but with her toxins, I know. Well then, you won't mind an extra pair of hands keeping her safe. I have 8 pairs already. But not 9, Jake replies. Baron or not, I can still smack you upside the head. Moira threatens him, and he snorts in amusement even as he starts having a little play wrestle with Lu Shu for ownership of his hand. That she has a different hand on each finger and is pulling is nothing short of charming to him. There's silence as the friendly basketball game continues, and a rousing round of "got your nose" gets Lu Shu to squeal in delight. I have so little to rebuild with, Moira eventually says, and Jake nods. What I didn't tell your Duchess was that I was a few weeks away from my contract ending. The lab was getting folded up, my contract was expiring, and I was going to go back to my home fleet. And now it's gone, Jake notes morosely. I was going to ask this adorable Feely boy if he had any room left in his family for a soldier girl. See if I couldn't get things started. I had my adventures, made my money, learned my lessons, and was ready for a decade or 3 of peace and comfort. Jake says nothing in response to that. Then I wake up numb, wet, and smelling of chemicals. I'm in darkness, I'm alone, I've been butchered, but I feel no pain. It only grows worse and worse as I stagger around to find an answer, 5/8 undone. And the answers made things no better, no easier. No, they did not, Moira agrees. Do you hate Vuxa? Jake asks, and Moira looks at him oddly. Your nightmare started on this world. I don't think anyone could blame you for hating this world above all else. 2 of Moira hold Lu Shu close, 3 examine the game, 1 looks up at the sky, and the remaining 2 bodies look down either direction of the street. Pointedly, none of them are looking directly at Jake. Then the enormous Lidris seems to retract back into herself. It would be easier to, she says after a bit, but I have fought and bled to do the kind of things you have done here. If I had been recruited just before the so-called Night of Blood, it would have cemented my loyalty. Had I been found shortly after Franklin executed that thing that had Dr. Finnell's face, I would have praised him as my hero. But now, here, I don't know. Jake says nothing. I feel like an afterthought, like my whole life is just someone's garbage, and it was only due to someone looking for dirt on someone else I was even found. Like I don't matter. Do you? Jake asks, and she turns to him. I just said I feel that way. Not what I was asking. Jake says, I was asking if you matter. Do you matter? What kind of question is that? An important one. Do you matter to you? Jake asks. Yes. Then you matter to someone. To the only someone that you should care about in this matter, Jake says simply. He turns away, and for a moment he can see a familiar figure of a much larger black man, covered in tattoos with a blue bandana and jacket right beside him. The words had been heading to him and not coming from him last time. He waves his hand through the memory and focuses on the here and now, not focusing on being an 8-year-old kid who let the bullies get to him and needed his big brother to sort him out. A big brother whose funeral he went to 5 years later. What I'm saying in the end is that it's not the end. If you want to pick things up again, then that's about all you need to actually do it. You've got the time to make things right. You just need the will for it, Jake says, and he downright gives the stink eye in the direction that the memory of his brother was, just daring for the subject of that bit of advice to appear in his mind. He needs to stop hanging around Franklin so much. The man is crazy. "What are you doing?" Moira asks him, and he turns back. The situation reminds me of some very formative moments. And not 3 days ago, I ended up dragged into a long, confusing, and exhausting debate into the concept of the soul and afterlife, and I've been seeing ghosts out of the corner of my eye since. "Really?" Moria asks in amusement. "Really. I imagined my brother there not even 2 minutes ago, and I was just daring my uncle to show up." "And what does your uncle have to do with this situation?" "I first met him when he got out of prison. Most of the family wanted nothing to do with him for being a scumbag, and he was determined to avoid going back, so he ostracized the members of my family who would have taken him back. End result, one middle-aged man alone took a shitty job and saved money like his life depended on it. Got a recommendation and got a better job, saving money like mad, and just before I left on the Dauntless, the man had bought himself a duplex and was renting out the other half. The man flunked out of high school. The man got caught dealing like an idiot and injured an officer to get the book thrown at him. So if a violent idiot could clean himself up and do better, then I think you might be able to too." "How did he die?" Moira asks. "He didn't. He should still be alive." "Then why are you seeing his ghost?" "It's called an overactive imagination and having a friend who's way too into that sort of stuff," Jake remarks. "He got me on a call with Emmanuel in the nerd division, and oh God, my head still hurts at the sheer nonsense they're cooking up. Should I be worried that I went from one military overfull of mad scientists to another?" "Oh, probably," Jake says, and Moira has a laugh, startled out of her for that. "But we're the good ones, I promise." "I'm sure," Moira begins to say, and is cut off as someone dunks without axiom help, and there's a cheer. Jake lets out one of his own, and the game goes on. "Although, I'm not sure I can play that. It's mostly a biped's toy. I'm technically bipedal, see? 2 legs. Moira counters, shifting her enormous lower body's legs. "Don't you mostly use the tail to move?" Jake asks. "Semantics." "Semantics? I'm always up for semantics?" "What?" "Sorry, the joke doesn't translate well. In English, semantics can sound like semantics, but it's very different in galactic trade. In galactic trade, it sounds closer to fuzzed wind, and it sounds like Patricia, a woman's name," Jake says, and she smiles a bit. "Is it any wonder that linguist is always a profession in need?" "Nope," Jake answers. "Feeling a bit better?" "A bit. It just feels kind of wrong to going back to doing the same thing that got me screwed over, just with different people." "Do you have any other skills?" "No, I'm a soldier, and I've never been anything else," Moira admits. "Well, maybe we can help with that too." "Oh. We do pay for education if you'll sign a contract." "What kind?" "One where you're willing to help us with your newly acquired smarts," Jake says, and Moira makes a considering sound in all 8 of her throats.